Hey everyone, this is Ahsan Raza. This is the Ahsan Raza podcast. Thank you for listening. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about landlords and how you as a landlord can help find the right tenant and help vet the tenants that you want to look for so they can be good long-term tenants in your home. Now, we've all heard about stories on the news about tenants not paying rent or people damaging properties, and it's really, really scary out there. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. There are a few bad apples, unfortunately, but how do you mitigate that? And that's what I'm going to talk about today and discuss with you on ways how you can really dive even more deeper from just the baseline essentials of your regular checks and balances and how you can do your best to find the right tenant for you. Now, when you're vetting a tenant, there are some baseline essentials that you're going to ask for and some more as well. So number one is going to be the job letter. Find out where the individuals work, what they do, and what their salary is. You also want to ask for their recent pay stubs. It could be the last 2 or 3 months. And then also ask for their credit report with the full score. Credit reports that I like to get are from Equifax, Borrowell, or TransUnion. These are one of the bigger companies out there, and make sure you ask for the full report because even though someone may have a good score, they may also have racked up a lot of debt. So you want to find out and you want to vet that report as much as you can in detail. Now, when you've received the full credit report with the score, I find that a lot of people actually don't study the report in detail. They just look at the score and they scroll down real quickly and that's it. The credit report you're going to receive is probably going to be about 20-25 pages, so it is a bit daunting to go through, but the report is very important for you to go through because in that report, you're going to see for any late payments, collections, bankruptcy, multiple credit inquiries. These are all very important things to note out because this information will help you get more details about the tenant. It's not just important to find out what the score is, but also what the entire report says. You also want to get photo IDs of anybody who is going to be on the lease as well. Now, along with photo IDs, if you have an application from someone who's new to Canada, they may have a work permit or a PR. So ask them to send you any legal Canadian documents so that you can verify that they are here. Now, these are things that generally we used to ask for and we still ask for, but we all know it's very, very easy to duplicate or make fraudulent documents. So now how do you get around that from somebody who's giving you fraudulent documents? There's really no 100% foolproof guarantee, but we can do our very best to mitigate those risks. So what I like to do is when somebody sends me a job letter, I'll find out if the company is real. I'm going to go online. I'm going to check to see how long the company has been around for. And then obviously I'm also going to call the employer to verify if this individual works there. I also like to ask for the person's or the tenant's email address, specifically their work email address, because if you are working at a company, more times than often you will have a work email address that they will give you. That's an added verification for employment. Then you also want to go check LinkedIn if they have an active LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profiles are great because they give us an insight as to the individual's work history. And usually most people do have LinkedIn. If they don't, it's okay, but it's an added measure of verification. And in that profile, you can also check to see if that person works at the company that he mentioned in the job letter. Now, as part of these baseline essentials, you also want to get a rental application filled out from the tenants. The rental application you can use is the OREA 410 form that you can send to them. And when you send to them, ask them to fill out as much as they can. In that application form, you're going to ask them for their name, their number, their driver's license. You're also going to ask them for their current and present employment, their prior employment. You're going to ask them about their current and present home, their landlord's information, their prior landlord's information, and this information will help you evaluate because now when you have that information on hand, you can also cross-reference to see if that information matches what was given in the job letters. Now, when you get the landlord information, it's a great idea to give the landlords a call, their current landlords, ask them about the individuals, ask them about the tenants, find out, are they paying rent on time? How have they been as tenants? Now, sometimes, if a landlord wants to get rid of a tenant, they may give a positive response anyways. But what I like to do is I like to call the prior landlord as well, because that person may have more of an honest opinion because he doesn't have any self-interest in this matter. Now, how do we still get around the risk of maybe a tenant not paying rent on time? Because even though you may have this incredible application and all these paperwork that looks amazing, there's still a chance that the tenants may default on rent or they may damage the property. And that can happen, right? Depending on who you get. As an added measure, what I would suggest now is to ask the tenants to send you a rent roll for the last 3 to 6 months to their current landlords. Now, they may object, they may hesitate, but you can explain to them and say, look, the situation right now in Ontario is very, very dire, where landlords are scared to give even good tenants a property, and tenants are also in a bind because they may be great tenants, but they're not getting applications fulfilled because the landlords worry. Now, you can ask for the rent roll for the last 3 to 6 months. This rent roll could be a screenshot of maybe the e-transfer they're sending to their landlords. And this tells you, okay, are they paying the rent on time each and every month? This is a great tool for me because this gives me a great sense and idea to confirm that rent was being paid on time each and every month to their current landlord. Now, if I'm still sort of hesitant and not really sure, I take it one step further. And what I like to do is ask for bank statements. Now, again, this might seem a bit overwhelming and intrusive, but the situation in Ontario is so dire right now that we have to make sure that the tenants we get are going to be secure and they're going to be able to afford and pay the rent. Now, the bank statements are not so much to find out, if they have a lot of cash in their account. It's more for me to find out if the payroll that they're getting is hitting their accounts. And so I like to ask the tenants to send me maybe a couple of bank statements that show just a payroll hitting the account. That gives me a lot of relief because now I know that the money they're getting into their account matches the pay stub they've given me prior and also matches the salary they've mentioned in their job letter. Now that you've collected all the baseline essentials for documents, what I like to do is now check online to see their online presence. I check platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn to get a feel and sense as to how the individual is. Are they party people? Are they family oriented? Whatnot. You learn a lot about people just through pictures online. Now, you might be telling yourself, well, I've already done all this stuff. I've already asked for job letters, pay stubs. Everything looked great, but I still got stuck with a bad tenant. And that can happen because these are not bulletproof verifications. These are ways to mitigate their risk. But now there's an added step further that a landlord can take to help mitigate these risks even further. There are online resources and companies that are now available that will help you, the landlord, actually vet the tenant further. So there's a company out there called Single Key. Single Key actually tells you how the tenant is in terms of their credit report, their photo IDs. Is it a fraudulent individual? It's a really great resource. It costs a little bit of money, but if you can go online and vet the tenant over there, that'll really give you some peace of mind because they actually give you the full real credit report on file. Other platforms are Rentify, Neighborly, which also assess tenants individually. And one platform which I really like now is called openroom.ca. Openroom basically is a website that allows landlords to fill out applications of tenants that have given them issues in the past. So if you ever had a court order, a landlord can actually go on this website and let other landlords know that this is individual actually was a headache for me. Now, what I do is when I get a good tenant application, one of the things that I'll do is I'll go on that website and I will actually type out the individual's name and I will check to see if that person has any court orders. And surprisingly, it's happened quite often where everything looked amazing, but I went onto the website, I typed in the person's name, and there were court orders against the individual of non-payment of rent. So it's very important to check out these online resources. Some online resources like Single Key also have rent guarantee programs that will cost you a monthly fee, but that will also give you some peace of mind as well. Now, this is probably the most important part of this subject is red flags, how to look out for red flags when you are looking for a tenant. Now, one of the red flags that happens a lot is when a tenant is pressuring you to accept his offer, his or her offer. And I get that happening a lot. And I explain to them, look, it takes time. It can take 48 hours to review the documents, verify employment. But if you have somebody who is basically rushing you and pressuring you to, get back to you as soon as possible, that sometimes is a red flag to me. Another red flag also can be when somebody eagerly wants to pay you upfront rent in advance, whether it's 6 months or 12 months. Now, I know a lot of people like this because for them, they're going to get the full year rent upfront. Well, first of all, that's not even legal. You'd have to find out from your lawyer and see what the loopholes are. But if somebody even voluntarily provides that to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be good tenants. So that to me is also a second red flag. Now, unless the individual has checked out in all boxes and it's a competitive rental environment and they themselves offer to give you advance payment, that's a decision that you're going to have to make on your own. But overall, what I find is when someone is doing that from the outside, then that to me is a bit of a red flag. Another red flag is the unwillingness to provide documents upfront. So sometimes I ask for people to send me their job letters or even their full credit reports. I get that happening a lot where somebody will send me just a screenshot of their credit score. And I'll say, well, can you send me the full credit report from Equifax or TransUnion? And they'll refuse to do so. And that tells me that they're probably trying to hide something because they may have something on the report that they don't want to show. So make sure that you get the entire report so you can find out the entire situation of the individual. Some other red flags will be employment letters that are fake. You have to look at the letter in detail. Make sure that the name on that job letter matches the photo ID that they've given you. Make sure that it's a real company. Make sure that logo is a real logo. You really have to become almost like an investigator to find out, what's happening here. Is it real or not? Now, as a final step, if everything works out and you're satisfied, the best thing to do would be to do a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting with the prospective tenant. I feel like a face-to-face really gives you a good idea of the individual. And I know everyone comes off great on their first impression, but it's not only important to the landlord to understand who the tenant is, but it's also important for the tenant to understand who the landlord is. So I think that online meeting or even the face-to-face will give you such a good idea of each other, and that will really help you feel a lot more comfortable. And at the end of the day, if that meeting goes well, you can proceed. And if you felt it didn't go well, then you have to go with your gut feeling. So now that you've secured a lease, you've found a tenant, you've got all the information from them, you've met them in person or on Zoom, and you're ready to go sign the lease and it's accepted, the next step is now to make sure that the property stays in good condition. Now, I get a lot of landlords who complain and tell me that, well, their tenants left the property in bad shape. And sometimes it's because they haven't gone to visit their own property in a year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years. So my recommendation is that once a tenant is secured, let the tenants know that you are going to be coming over once or twice a year for an annual inspection, just to make sure that things are safe, things are working, and just to do your due diligence, because that way it helps you to also see your property, see what kind of condition it is. And if you have any issues, you can also tell the tenant right there and then. Now, as a landlord, you got to understand that owning a home and renting it out is still a business, and you've got to treat it like a business. So screening tenants and vetting them is a part of the process. And it's not something that you can take shortcuts on. So if it takes you time to do all the due diligence, take your time. At the same time, also understand that as a tenant, tenants also have families, they also have lives, they also have places that they want to live in. And I do find that oftentimes, the relationship between a landlord and tenant isn't just caused negatively by the tenant, it can be also caused by the landlord as well. So both sides have got to be on the same page. And I say this to all landlords who are listening, is when a tenant has an issue at a house or something breaks down, or maybe there's a leak or something dangerous is happening and they try to reach you or address the information or address the situation, and the landlord is not replying or is being too cheap to fix these issues, then that's also going to cause a problem later on. So as a landlord, you have responsibilities just as much as a tenant has responsibilities, but this is your home. You've got to make sure that it's a livable space for the tenants who's living in there, to make sure they're happy, they're enjoying their time there, and really have that good professional relationship with your tenants so that this can be long-term and so there's no issues down the road. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you have any more questions about landlord tips, please hit me up, let me know, and I wish you all the best. Now, if you're a landlord and you're having a tough time going through all of these processes and collecting documents, you can always reach out to myself and my team. We can list your properties for rent, do the entire vetting process to make sure that you get the right tenant, and we'd be happy to help you out in the future.